I went to school this morning. Now I have to vote which classmate dies tomorrow. They told us it was a vote. That was the word the snake man used. Vote. Like we were picking a class president and not signing a death warrant. It started on what should have been a normal day. The first day of 6th grade. I remember the smell of freshly sharpened pencils and that weird, dusty sweetness of old textbooks. My new homeroom teacher, Ms. Alva, had a kind face, the kind with little wrinkles around her eyes from smiling a lot. I'd picked a seat by the window, next to a kid named Kavi who kept tapping his foot like a drum solo. I was doodling a dragon in my notebook when the classroom door banged open. Not a knock, a slam. 4 men stood there. They wore plain black suits that didn't fit right, too tight in the shoulders. They looked like they were poured into them. They had no name tags, just blank, bored faces. Ms. Alva stood up, her smile gone. "Can I help you?" One of them pointed a thick finger, not at her, but at us. "Them," he said. His voice was flat. Empty. "I'm sorry, these are my students," she said, stepping between him and the first row of desks. "You must have the wrong room." "No," the man said, "we don't." And then everything dissolved into noise. Kids started screaming. Ms. Alva lunged for the phone on her desk, but one of the men caught her by the arm and threw her against the whiteboard. The sound of her head hitting the board was a wet crack that I can still hear when I close my eyes. I think I tried to get up, to run, but another one of them was on me. I felt a sharp, cold sting in my neck, and then the world went fuzzy and dark like an old TV shutting off. I woke up to the shuddering rumble of an engine. I was in the back of a truck, the metal floor cold against my cheek. The only light came from thin slits in the ceiling. Across from me, Kavi was sitting up, hugging his knees. His foot was perfectly still. "Hey," he whispered, his voice shaky. "What happened?" My tongue felt thick, my head pounded. He shook his head. "They grabbed everyone. Fought back, Ms. Alva. They just loaded us in. One by one." He wouldn't look at me. "I guess they just threw us in here based on the seating chart. Efficient bastards." The rest of the ride was a long, dark silence, broken only by the rattle of the truck and the occasional terrified whimper from the other side of a thin metal divider. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know why. When the doors finally screeched open, the sunlight was so bright it hurt my eyes. We were herded out into dry, biting heat. Desert. All I could see was flat, cracked earth stretching to a hazy horizon, and in the middle of it all, a single, windowless building. It was a giant cube of gray concrete surrounded by a fence topped with glittering coils of razor wire. Armed guards in tactical gear watched us, their rifles held loose but ready. They marched us inside. The air was stale and cold. More gray walls. A man stepped out of a doorway to greet us, a barrel of a man with a shaved head and a jaw so tight it looked like it was about to crack. "Hello," he boomed, the sound echoing off the concrete. It was the loudest, most cheerful sound I had ever heard, and it was terrifying. "Welcome, welcome. Let me show you the rules." He didn't unfold a piece of paper. He just jabbed a thumb at the wall behind him, where the rules were painted in huge, stark black letters. No running, no yelling, no physical contact. Wear your uniform at all times. 1 shower per day, no more, no less. Enter only your assigned dorm. Eat everything on your tray. No seconds. Comply with all instructions. Never resist. Break. A rule, the man bellowed, a sick grin spreading across his face, and you will face a serious consequence. He gestured to the guards, who all took a small, deliberate step forward. We got the message. I mentally named him the conductor. He seemed to be orchestrating our nightmare. Dorm. Assignments. Kazimir, Leo, RHYs, Omar. Boys' dorm. A group of guards peeled them away from the crowd. Kavi, Samar, Jude, Boys' dorm B. On and on he went, his voice a hammer, until only 5 of us girls were left. Me, a quiet girl named Alina, and 3 others I didn't know well. Zella, Alina, Ivy, Maya, Jurl's dorm C. The guards led us down a long, narrow hall into a room with 3 sets of metal bunk beds bolted to the floor. Change, one of them grunted, pointing us toward a bathroom down the hall. One bathroom, for probably 40 kids. There was already a line. When I finally got in, the smell of bleach and piss made my eyes water. I stripped off my clothes, my favorite jeans and hoodie, and left them in a pile. I put on the uniform. It was a set of thin white scrubs, not a comforting white, a sterile, chemical white. The kind of white that makes you feel like a specimen. When we were all dressed, the conductor's voice echoed down the hall. Lunch time. The cafeteria was another gray box filled with long metal tables. The food was a scoop of gray sludge on a metal tray with 3 saltine crackers. What the fuck is this? Reese, a loudmouth from my class, muttered from the next table. He didn't say it loud, but the conductor's head snapped in his direction. I saw a flicker of something truly ugly in the man's eyes before his grin returned. I shoved the sludge down my throat. It tasted like nothing and everything, a metallic, grainy paste that made me want to gag. Time for class. The conductor shouted 5 minutes later. Class wasn't a classroom. It was a huge room filled with rows of desks, each with an old-looking computer terminal. The screen was black, with a single blinking green cursor. You will be tested, he roared. Prove your worth. Begin. I sat there staring at the screen, my mind a total blank. Algebra, history, what did they want? The cursor just blinked and blinked. After what felt like an hour, the conductor came back. His grin was wider than ever. Time for the reckoning. They pushed us out of the room and down a set of concrete stairs into a basement. It was cold down there, and it smelled like damp earth and ozone. The center of the room was dominated by a huge circular metal platform, but all around it, lining the walls, were glass cylinders, just big enough for one person. They forced us into them, one by one, in alphabetical order. A heavy door hissed shut behind me, and I was sealed inside. I pounded on the glass, but it was thick, soundproof. I couldn't hear the others, but I could see their terrified faces, their mouths open in silent screams. The floor beneath my feet vibrated, then began to rise. Clunk, hiss, whir. We were lifted up into a vast, dark chamber, arranged in a perfect circle around the central platform. High above, in a glass control booth, the conductor stood watching, but he wasn't alone. A man stepped out of the shadows beside him. He was thin, almost skeletal, in a perfectly tailored suit. He had narrow eyes that seemed to absorb all the light in the room. He was the human version of a viper. "Hello, children," he said. His voice wasn't loud like the conductor's. It was calm, quiet, and it slithered into the air through a speaker in my capsule. It was the most frightening thing I had ever heard. It is time to vote. Each of you will be provided with a slip of paper and a pencil. You will write the name of one of your classmates on that paper. The person whose name appears most often will be removed. Removed? My blood went cold. There are no other criteria, the snake man continued, a slight terrible smile touching his lips. Choose for any reason you wish. Popularity, annoyance, a grudge. It does not matter to us. Now, papers. The conductor pulled a lever. A tiny slot opened in the wall of my capsule, and a small square of paper and a sharpened pencil slid out. Who do I choose? My mind raced. Strategically, I should pick someone who might pick me. A threat. Reese. He was an asshole. He'd made fun of my shoes on the first day. A stupid, petty reason. But in here, sealed in this glass tube, it felt like the most important reason in the world. My hand was shaking so badly, I could barely write his name. RHYS. Time is up, the snake man said. Another slot opened above my head. A small mechanical arm, like a chrome insect leg, shot out, plucked the paper from my fingers, and retracted. It was so fast, so clean, so impersonal. One more thing, the snake man added, his eyes sweeping over our glass cages. From this moment on, you are forbidden to speak to one another. Communication of any kind will result in your immediate removal. Understood? The platform shuddered and began its descent, lowering us back into the dark, silent basement. I didn't sleep last night. How could I? My dreams were full of that mechanical arm and the snake man's empty eyes. Dinner was more sludge. Breakfast was more sludge. Lunch was the same. Now, we're back in the computer room for another class. The cursor is blinking. But I found something. An old command prompt. A backdoor. I don't know if it connects to anything real, to the outside world, but I have to try. I have to tell someone. Any minute now, the conductor is going to come back. They're going to take us to the basement again. They're going to announce the results of the vote. They're going to show us what removed means. I can hear footsteps in the hall. Please, if anyone sees this, help us. I don't want to die here.